Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us, and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Ashley Martin, and I'll be your host for today. I'm also joined by my co-hosts, Valen Kalika and Jason Cohen. A few reminders before we start. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you are using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast. You can enable them by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask a Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. We often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event the answer was not provided, or if you have any additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Microsoft Sentinel forum at aka.ms/Microsoft Sentinel community. We'd love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. And by the way, all the links that I'm announcing will be shared with you in the chat or the live event Q&A window shortly. I would also like to invite you to join our public community by visiting aka.ms/security-community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews at aka.ms/prsetcom. Request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Takayuki Hoshino and Naomi Christis will take us through SAP Mini-Series Part 2, Deep Dive End-to-End Installation of SAP for Azure Sentinel. Takayuki is a Principal Program Manager in Azure Global Engineering, and Naomi is a Program Manager for Azure Sentinel. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Takayuki and Naomi. Naomi, the floor is yours.
Thanks. So thanks, Ashley. And as Ashley said, hello and welcome everyone. We are delighted you are joining us in our second part of this SAP mini-series with Microsoft Sentinel. So as Ashley said, my name is Naomi Christis. I am a program manager in the customer engineering team for Microsoft Sentinel. And I'm here today with Takayuki, whom you might remember from the previous SAP mini-series session with Sarah Young. So Taka, do you also want to shortly introduce yourself?
Yep, thanks Naomi. And hello everyone, this is Taka Hoshino from Azure engineering team, focusing on SAP on Azure. I'm going to cover the kind of technical portion of this session. So thank you very much.
Yep. So today's session will be more of a deep dive session since we are presenting the various configuration steps for the Microsoft Sentinel SAP solution. And as Taka just mentioned, he has some awesome demos lined up for you. Before we start this session, I quickly want to ask if you could forgive me if I mess up and say Azure Sentinel instead of Microsoft Sentinel, since this name change was just introduced last week. So the name change, by the way, makes total sense. Since Sentinel is now more than just Azure. Sentinel is bringing in feeds from many different sources, including SAP. So changing the name to Microsoft Sentinel was to be expected since it is now fully a Microsoft product and not just Azure, but it gets, I have time to get used. I need time to get used to it. So, but let's look at the agenda topics for today's session. So while in the first session, Sarah gave an overview of why SAP monitoring is important and what we can offer in Microsoft Sentinel, today's session will be more focused on the in-depth installation of the solution. Why do we give this extra session, you might ask? Well, the installation is a bit different from some of the other solutions we have in Sentinel. And hence, we want to walk through the installation step by step. So first, we are going to briefly do a recap of last week's session. And afterwards, Taka will demonstrate how to set up the Microsoft Sentinel SAP Data Connector, and he will showcase some use cases for the SAP Security Content we currently have in Sentinel. We will finish up with some frequently asked questions and give some general advice. As you might have gathered, this is a more technical session than the first part of this series. So if this is the first time hearing about SAP and our Sentinel SAP solution, I advise you to also watch the first awesome session of this series. So as Sarah told you last time, countless organizations around the world rely on SAP systems and their applications to handle massive amounts of business-critical data. SAP is literally the backbone of those companies, and a security breach in these mission-critical SAP applications can therefore have major consequences, like sensitive data that gets stolen or the destruction of your production operations. So it is crucial that malicious activities and misconfigurations are detected immediately to protect your finance and supply chain from security breaches. And while it is very important to detect suspicious activity as soon as possible, in the event of a data breach, you must also be able to account for and demonstrate which events have taken place and how your organization has acted afterwards. So the consequences of a breach are well known, but it is still notoriously challenging to detect threats to your SAP applications, since the systems are getting more complex and more cross connections between applications are emerging. And you can't even predict if the attacks are going to come from outside or if it's coming from an insider threat. So the complex nature of SAP systems means that threat can emerge across multiple modules and they require ongoing monitoring. And there is really a need for advanced threat detection and, of course, cross-correlation of various logs from numerous systems. So the Microsoft Sentinel SAP Data Connector enables you to monitor SAP systems for these sophisticated threats across the different layers of SAP. So with Sentinel, you can now monitor your operating system layer, for example, Linux or Windows. You can monitor your database layer, whether it's HANA-DB or SQL. And now it is also possible to monitor the business and application layer. So to have the most effective threat detection possible, SAP events need to be correlated across the enterprise together with other security events. And this means that SAP information also needs to be integrated with information from other systems in your environment. So this information needs to be collected in one place and then correlated. And this is the greatest advantage which Microsoft Sentinel offers. We collect data from different sources like firewalls or Active Directory across cloud platforms like AWS or Azure, but also from on-prem. And now you also are able to collect events from your SAP systems. So if a user acts suspiciously in one application, then we can correlate to see if this suspicious behavior is also noticed somewhere else in our environment. For example, an attacker starts his attack with sending a phishing mail for a password change. If he is successful in his phishing campaign, he will be able to log in and change, for example, the salary table or download sensitive customer data. And this customer data can contain outgoing payments, or the attacker can even delete sensitive data. And speaking of deleting and changing logs, he also might disable the audit logs, and there will be no trace of what he might be doing in the system. So the attacks can start with a phishing mail, but might end up with serious consequences. It is thus of the utmost importance that you protect your systems for sophisticated threats on multiple fronts. Another common scenario for an SAP attack is the use of a break glass user. So while the special users are frequently enabled for valid reasons, the usage of these privileges still need to be very carefully monitored because of their high privileges. So if such an account were to be compromised, we would need to be alerted as soon as possible to evade further escalations of attacks. And in Sentinel, you can monitor for these high privileged users and, for example, use automation to help manage these risks. For example, monitor for system access from these special users, and when the system access is detected, you can automatically call a playbook that will send a Teams message to confirm that SAP permissions were given to perform the operation. So with the Sentinel solution for SAP, you are now able to use Microsoft Sentinel's visibility, threat detection, and the investigation tools to protect your SAP systems and cross-correlate across the entire organization. And on top of that, you can use the SOAR capabilities of Sentinel to start remediation processes. So let's take a closer look at what the solution entails. So the SAP Threat Monitoring solution needs to cover both the infrastructure layer, so virtual machine, storage, and network, as well as the business and application layers, since threats can traverse every layer of the SAP system. Hence, we provide multi-layered coverage for your SAP systems in Sentinel. So with the existing Microsoft Sentinel data connectors, such as those for virtual machines, networking, Azure Active Directory, we can monitor the underlying infrastructure. And for example, this also includes collecting the SAP database audit logs. So this can be done with our normal syslog collection. So you have to configure your log analytics agent to collect the syslog files. And with the new SAP Data Connector, we have the added ability to monitor the SAP and business and application layers. So this SAP Data Connector streams 14 application logs from the entire SAP system landscape and collects logs from both the advanced business application programming via the NetWeaver RFC calls and also file storage data via OSAP control interface. So we have, for example, the ABAP syslog table, which records all SAP NetWeaver application server ABAP system errors, warnings, user logs because of failed sign-in attempts and process messages. And we also have a table called ABAP Security Audit Logs, which, for example, records the security-related changes, like a change to main user records. And this log also informs you about successful and unsuccessful sign-in attempts and helps us reconstruct successful or unsuccessful transactions. So all these logs can be found on our Microsoft Docs to see which log contains which information. After the SAP Data Connector is deployed, you can deploy the SAP solution Security Content to smoothly gain insight into your organization's SAP environment. So this solution has built-in security content with out-of-the-box detections, which can catch important SAP threats like system configuration changes, execution of sensitive function modules, and suspicious activity by privileged users. So for example, we have a rule that alerts us of the deactivation of the security audit log. So no need to tell you why this is highly suspicious, right? But another example of a template rule is the rule which identifies brute force attacks on the SAP system, but then based on failed sign-in attempts for the backend system. I will not go over all the rules we currently have in the solution since there are just so many, but I also want to inform you that the SAP Sentinel solution also comes with a rich set of configurations in the form of watch lists. So these watch lists reduce noise by allowing you to describe your specific SAP environment and the risks that you're most concerned about. So for example, you can specify whether a certain system is a production or a test system, or you can identify specific SAP transactions that should be carefully monitored in your environment. So an example of a rule that uses these watch lists is, for example, SAP login from unexpected network rule, which helps you identify a sign-in from an unexpected network. And of course, this then depends on the SAP network's watch lists. Of course, you can also customize these analytic rules to your needs, and you can build your own detection to monitor sensitive transactions and other business risks. So you can go ahead and play around with the rules that we provide. The solution also has includes some built-in workbooks to visualize and monitor data that's ingested via the SAP Data Connector. We have a workbook that helps security teams visualize the security health of their SAP systems. This kind of information can be found in the SAP Audit Log Browser workbook, and this includes information about user sign-ins over time, events ingested by the system, which ABAP programs are running, stuff like that. We also have a workbook which displays sensitive and critical assignments. Another one that focuses on executions of sensitive programs and function models. And a last one that is titled SAP Persistence and Data Exfiltration. So all these components in the solution help Sentinel monitor threats for SAP. These capabilities enable you to protect critical SAP systems more efficiently and effectively. And the solution extends Sentinel's cloud-native security analytics and AI capabilities to the world of SAP. So I will now let Taka take over from me to get deeper into the configuration steps and some demonstrations so that you can all start monitoring SAP with Sentinel.
Thank you, Naomi, for the great opener. And also for warming up the stage pretty nicely. So again, this is Taka Hoshino from Azure Engineering team. I'm based out of Redmond, Washington, US, doing program management for SAP on Azure. And from here, we are getting into a little bit more technical and a little bit tactical, section of this part 2 session. It's not the FI, Sentinel plus SAP. It is how is the intent of this section. So again, the intent is how we can make sure that you successfully stand up the pilot system in a week or 2, then to be able to evaluate the solution to decide if you wanna go ahead to implement this for the more production system. So yeah, so bear with me. Just I'm trying to kind of cover both SAP and Sentinel, a little bit from technical and also the setup and deployment perspective. So just beginning with initial slide, kind of showing illustration on architecture diagram, as you can see in this slide. So it's a 3 component. One is source SAP system. 2 is a Docker data container VM, which is actually VM, Docker, and its container is running inside VM. And of course, in destination, the 3 destination is going to be a Sentinel workspace. And just want to kind of highlight that we don't really I think we have a full coverage for the variety of SAP applications, and also all kind of SAP supported OSDB platform. It does not need to be, SAP does not need to be running in Azure cloud. It can be any cloud, or it can be any private cloud. It can be even on-prem. And underlying platform can be Unix, on-prem, or Linux, Windows, HANA database, SQL Server, Oracle, DB2. All kind of SAP supported application platform are supported and within the scope of this solution. And also, SAP RFC, remote function call, is a pretty popular application protocol that the SAP is using for a very long time. So I think it's a pretty mature network and application protocol, which is used by this SAP Data Connector within the Sentinel. And I think once setup is done, you will be surprised for sure by the rich lineup of SAP logs that Sentinel supports today. And this list, starting with ABAP security audit log, which is most common use case and log scenario. But this list is going to grow, from now. So, there is investment that Azure Sentinel engineering team, together with my SAP team, investing quite a lot to grow the list of SAP log sources that we support. So again, kind of 2 section. First section, how to set up a pilot, kind of in summary. So just kind of 1 slide showing a 3 component, SAP and Data Connector VM as a middleman and Sentinel as a destination. So first of all, you need to find the SAP system, most likely, dry run, sandbox, or kind of pilot system, whether it's on-prem or cloud or in your private cloud, or any SAP would be, supported. Also, I kind of put some, prerequisite for the SAP side, like SAP _basis versions. We cover most of the SAP basis version, unless your company is using, legacy SAP R3 system. And also, going into a little bit detail on another prerequisite on SAP, like on SAP Notes, that's one, and also SAP Change Request. These, it is 2. And just in case you do not have any SAP system, which is handy, you have another solution. You have another option to deploy a new SAP sandbox system, which is pre-built by SAP using SAP Cloud Appliance Library. So you can imagine this is SAP library, which has all the tens of pre-built SAP application images, which is available in the library. Then you can download such images from SAP library to Azure Cloud. Then you can use it for the kind of pilot or sandbox system for SAP, which I'm going to cover later in today's session. And also SAP Data Connector VM, I'm going to demonstrate most of the setup kind of step by step. But Data Connector VM need a connectivity to SAP as a source. and also Azure Keyboard to store all the credentials to be able to securely connect to SAP, and also Sentinel. And you may want to enable and disable log filtering when needed to reduce data ingest to optimize the cost, and that's kind of optional. And also for Sentinel, in today's session, most of the slide is actually kind of moved to the appendix in the PowerPoint slide, which we are going to share after this session. But yeah, all the usual Sentinel configuration, would be needed, like analytics rule, watch list, which I'm going kind of hopefully I can cover the Sentinel configuration as well. Okay. So just starting from SAP, and please forgive my using some SAP terminology for those who are not very familiar with SAP, but I kind of put some kind of basic info, who should cover this section. So because this is SAP prerequisite, so who should be SAP expert team or SAP basis team in particular. So any SAP basis team should be familiar with your SAP version or SAP basis version. So kind of long story in short, SAP basis 750, SP13 or higher. This is not really kind of high, super high criteria. All the mainstream latest SAP application like SAP S/4HANA or newer side of SAP Business Suite, or sometimes your SAP team may call it SAP ECC, which is short for ERP, Central Component, which contains a finance module, supply chain module, HR module, depending on the SAP modules that your company implements. Or it can be SAP NetWeaver, or BW is short for SAP Business Warehouse, which is SAP's Enterprise Data Warehouse solution. All these applications is using underlying SAP Basis version. So SAP Basis is kind of platform layer under this application. So I think your SAP Basis team should acknowledge that what kind of SAP application your company is running. Then SAP Basis team should know exact SAP version which is used. Then 750, I think it's a pretty popular version. But even SAP Basis 700 to 740, these are also technically supported. So also our testing is done predominantly for the newer side of SAP version, but still from a support perspective, we can cover most of the SAP Basis version in the world. So I would say more than 90% or 95% of SAP system in the world, can be covered, in this prerequisite from SAP perspective. So that is one for the prerequisite. Another one is a required SAP notes. SAP notes is bug fix that the SAP released to its customer. So in order for us to avoid any bugs which SAP used to have in the past, so these bugs need to be fixed by installing SAP notes. So we are pretty specific. Depending on SAP Basis version in use, you asked to install these SAP bug fixes like 2641084 to fix bugs on SAP audit log. So if you are going to do SAP threat detection monitoring around SAP audit log, then if you're using older side of SAP basis version, you need to install these SAP nodes. So this is not really, this is nothing new for SAP basis people. So I would say the level to implement is pretty easy, nothing special. But SAP node installation sometimes time consuming. It's not like doing Windows update or patching your iOS. SAP node installation takes some time. So it may take up to 12 hours because sometimes if you need to install this SAP node 2641084, some other SAP node installation may be needed depending on the SAP basis version. So you can expect up to 12 hours. But the good news is as long as you are using S/4HANA or newer side of SAP Business Suite, you can skip this SAP node installation. So in case you are using this newer version, you can it's gonna be 0 hours. You can simply skip to and proceed to the next slide. Another prerequisite, SAP Change Request. So file SAP nodes is built by SAP themselves. This SAP Change Request, they are built by Microsoft as part of Sentinel SAP Connector, which is built in to the connector. So you can download SAP Change Request that the Microsoft built. So I'm kind of clicking. So you can see the SAP Change Request, which is a custom code, custom module in SAP ABAP language that Microsoft provide through the GitHub. So these are kind of package that your SAP basis team can pick and import into your SAP system. So again, depending on SAP version in use, and also depending on the purpose. So you need to install, if it's a newer version, it's gonna be a 144. If you're using the older version, it's gonna be 146. So while we are reducing a dependency on SAP Change Request, we are heading towards a direction to use the SAP standard API, but still these SAP Change Request installation, it's mandatory. So depending on SAP basis version 144 or 146, and the last one is gonna be kind of optional. If you want to create SAP custom role for this connector, which means in case if you want to avoid using kind of super user for Sentinel SAP connector, being security sensitive, then you may want to create a custom role within SAP to kind of minimize permission on this system user, and also you want to avoid using such a super user for this security monitoring, because security monitoring itself want to monitor such a powerful and dangerous system user in the first place. But still, it's kind of optional. So you can download and import this 140 for all SAP version. So again, the source SAP servers can be, can be the one running on-prem, your data center, or any cloud, including Azure and other cloud, and can run on top of any platform which is supported by SAP, including Unix, Linux mainframe, AS400, Windows, HANA, any DB that SAP supports. The only caveat is SAP R3 is no longer supported by SAP in the first place. So while it may technically work, but it's not. It's kind of outside of our support. Like it's no longer supported by SAP in the first place. Okay. And again, just in case if you you don't have any SAP in hand, and just in case you want to start small by touching any SAP system in your environment, here's the SAP library to kind of help you. So if you kind of click, carol.sap.com, let me kind of switch to, maybe I can jump into, the SAP Cloud Appliance Library, or aka SAP Carol. So once you create, kind of account, then, so this is delivered by SAP themselves, not by Microsoft. But this is pretty useful tool that just in case there's a 65 kind of pre-built SAP application image. So it's a pre-built, so that you don't need to install any SAP application. You don't need to install any underlying platform. You can simply filter what you want to download to your Azure subscription. So I think in this case, S/4HANA is the most common application that the SAP heading towards. So S/4HANA 2020, the first one, full activated appliance. So this one, includes everything. So which may be a little bit, kind of large preview system, but you can simply, go ahead to create instance. Then you can choose account Azure subscription that you registered. And as you can see, this is a 30-day trial license agreement. So, this is a 30-day free of charge trial version of SAP application image. So I can go ahead, accept, and proceed to the download. I don't want to accept here because I'm gonna lose my credit for this S/4HANA 2020. But let me kind of go back here. So yeah, 65, or I think it's a 72 pre-built images are free of charge for 30-day trial period. Then you can download S/4HANA 2020 or a little bit older version, BW, SAP ERP, which is kind of older version SAP ERP, which is still common in the world. Or it can be just SAP HANA database, etc. So usually 30 to, if it's an S/4HANA full appliance, it may take, kind of 2 hours or so. But usually it's, anyone with access to Azure subscription, it's pretty easy to kind of pick the, SAP application image. Then you can simply create an instance to download SAP images into your subscription. So this is for how I download it. This one is SAP NetWeaver 7.5 system that I downloaded from SAP Carol. So yeah, it's pretty small system. E series version 3. 4 CPU, 32 GB. It's not using HANA. It is using Sybase AC inside, but this is still kind of pretty useful to do all the pilot and demonstration, that I'm going to show off today. So just in case you don't have any SAP system, this is still useful for the sandbox and the POC. This is not meant to use for the production or pre-production or quality assurance system at all. So that is the only gadget. Second is SAP Data Connector VM as a middleman after you confirm and do all the preparation on the SAP side. So this is kind of one slide describing all the prerequisite and component. So again, it's SAP Data Connector VM itself, which is a VM as of today. In the near future, because this component is using a Docker container. So in the near future, we may be able to support kind of Kubernetes platform rather than customer spinning up Linux VM as we are doing today. Technically, Docker Kubernetes is also supported, but the usage of VM has been tested so far. I think as of today, we recommend to spin up a Linux VM, or it can be pretty small D series VM, just one VM. Then you can run Docker, and also the container image is gonna be they're going to be downloaded by running an installer of this Data Connector VM, which I'm going to show today. Then, so because this is a middleman, require connectivity for SAP, 3 TCP port will be required for SAP remote function call protocol to be able to run and to securely connect to SAP and to do a data ingest. Because SAP RFC is going to be protocol, so SAP RFC SDK is going to be SAP library that the connector is going to use. So for installation of Data Connector VM, you need to download this RFC SDK, which I kind of put the link to the SAP Download Center, then to make sure that the installer can find SAP library to proceed with installation. And also, Azure, as for the Azure connectivity, Azure keyboard is going to be used to store all the credentials for connector to connect to SAP, and also a Sentinel workspace. So yeah, this is a mandatory component for this architecture. And also, yeah, as a destination, it is Sentinel workspace, or AKA log analytics workspace. This is destination to store all the ingested log from SAP. Then your SAP security team want to do all the analysis and the monitoring on the top of Sentinel workspace. So yeah, this connectivity is also required. Connectivity to GitHub, yeah, this is kind of optional to kind of download the latest installer to this Data Connector VM. So let me quickly kind of go to the demo. So everything is documented in our documentation. Deploy SAP Continuous Threat Monitoring. This is kind of master document. Then all the prerequisite on SAP, Azure, and Docker VM, it's written in detail. And I think as for the installation of Data Connector VM, here's a kind of step-by-step installation guidance. So let me just quickly kind of show you the installation flow. So right here, just kind of one command, downloading a Sentinel SAP connector module, and also kind of bash, with bash kind of executing a kickstart shell command. So yeah, it's kind of basically, it's, download is already done. So I'm kind of trying to proceed to the next step to configure configuration file. And that is what I'm trying to do. Starting OS update to install all the required kind of module, which is already done. So it's done pretty quickly. Let me just enter to continue. So Docker image pool is already done. So what I'm trying to do is just kind of giving all the input for a connector to be able to talk to SAP in the backend. So host name and system number is a 2-digit number, 000103. SID is the identifier for the SAP application instance. Client is also using 3-digit, usually 3-digit number. So in my case, it's 000. Also kind of installer showing error message, which is actually kind of warning message. So I can, because there's existing Docker container in place, so I can overwrite and remove the existing one and overwrite the Docker container. So I need to kind of put the keyboard name. So sometimes some customers that I support use some SAP star and some other built-in system user. Recommendation is creating a separate system user just for this purpose. So I kind of created Sentinel as a SAP user, and password is also given. And workspace ID is another identifier for connector to connect and talk to the Sentinel as a target. So workspace ID and also the key. Because these are pretty secure kind of credential, these credentials is going to be stored in Azure keyboard. And also, as I said, SAP and NetWeaver RFC SDK need to be downloaded in advance and kind of giving file location for this library, so that the Data Connector VM installation is already done. So as you can see. So this is the outcome of this configuration. So as you can see, the kind of host name and also SAP connection strings in this configuration file, but all the secure kind of credential is actually went to the kind of keyboard. So I'm trying to. So the data connector using a secret. So I'm not going to kind of show you into the detail, but for example, SAP ABAP user. This is one of the secret which is stored in AKB rather than in the configuration file. So this way, I can see the Docker container which is up and running since 2 minutes ago. Then I can go with showing all the log. So every minute, container VM is pulling SAP in kind of backend. So yeah, it just establish connectivity to SAP in the backend and doing all the initial data ingest from SAP to Sentinel workspace. I think I'm just running 2 duplicate Docker container from the same source. So let me just quickly do a Control-C and stop this Docker container for demo purpose. So I'm kind of trying to show you step-by-step guidance on this Docker VM container. And I have some detailed guidance in PowerPoint slide and also in appendix. So Docker logs command is always useful to kind of monitor the log ingest. And also, in case you want to kind of reduce SAP logs that you want to monitor, you can take a look into the system config INI file. So that by default, all log ingest is turned on. So it's all true, but you can change them to the false to reduce log volume, log ingest volume. And some other typical command for the troubleshooting, which is everything is written in documentation. Now, after you install SAP Data Connector, you can switch over to Azure side, Azure Sentinel. So who is going to be Azure Infra team or security team? It's just installing Microsoft Continuous Threat Monitoring for SAP as a package. So nothing special. It's going to be just 5 minutes or so. Then once SAP solution is installed, you are going to see all the custom log in the Sentinel log, which is going to be the basis of this log monitoring. So let me just quickly kind of show you how the SAP log is going to look like. So once SAP solution is installed, then you're going to see the variety of SAP ABAP custom log in the Sentinel logs. So ABAP user, ABAP log, ABAP audit log. Then we can, since there's a kind of preview, you can do a preview. I think I kind of put some sample query so that rather than running a select star from these custom log, you may want to reuse some of the sample query which is in place. So as you can see, the data connector is already kind of up and running. So I think it's logs. Also, you can use some of these sample queries that you want to run. I think it's to kind of quickly kind of show you how to demonstrate use cases. I think I got kind of 5 minutes, so let me very quickly kind of show you how to simulate suspicious SAP log zone on the SAP system. So I kind of put all the typical SAP transactions that you want to test to simulate suspicious SAP log zone. So let me just kind of go into the SAP system, which I downloaded from SAP Cal. Then I intentionally do logon failure and also you can log in. Then I think for SAP basis people, I think they are pretty familiar how to see the SAP audit log using this test 04 user. Then this is most ridiculous and most dangerous activities and operations that people can come up with. So audit log browsing and /n is always useful to kind of go back to the initial screen. Then I think one of the typical suspicious activity is the changing SAP audit log configuration itself. You can someone can turn off logging about audit logging intentionally. Then this should be monitored by Sentinel. And also I can quickly kind of show you /n to kind of come back and SC16. Browsing SAP user table. then kind of downloading the to the local system, or someone who has kind of powerful permission, it can print out this user table. Just kind of for example, right? So all these threat should be monitored in this SAP audit log. So as you can see, all the activities is logged into this audit log. Then the intent is all these security events should be monitored on SAP Sentinel system. So once you kind of open this audit log browser, so as you can see, this is kind of live system which I'm showing. Then all the high severity event can be seen in this workbook. And also, I think as for the authentication, you can see that all the login, logout, including logon failure, and etc. So suspicious user changes, which is kind of workbook is kind of previewed, so that you can kind of customize Sentinel workbook, which are all built into the package. So yeah, I can put all the detailed information and guidance in kind of PowerPoint, so that you can also take a look. And for the detail, I kind of put something on how to check the data ingest volume from a log query. So yeah, I think it's FAQ for the benefit time. I just kind of want to kind of quickly kind of show you kind of 3 most frequently asked question. Then I think you can surely start small by minimizing cost by using the log filtering for sure, and also you can check the log ingest volume from log analytics, and also you can leverage kind of 1 month free trial, and also the all these security intelligence and practice is included in this Sentinel product, including SAP Threat Monitoring. So that would be lots of values, added value on Sentinel. And also, security monitoring is one of the aspects that we include in this Azure Security Platform in the context of SAP, so that you can, when you demonstrate these use cases to your business user, you can also attach to some other security topic like a single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, etc. So yeah, I'm always not very good at the time management, but in part 1 session, we Sarah Young and also today Naomi covered 5 Azure Sentinel for SAP threat detection. SAP is the crown jewel, so that security monitoring is going to be increasingly important. Call to action, plan very well for the successful POC. It can be set up. Usually it's 1 week or 2 weeks, and please make sure to engage both SAP system and security team. And there's a 1 month free trial period for Sentinel and SAP Care. So I kind of put the link to the resources which should be useful. So yep, that's pretty much it from my side. And I think yeah, I kind of put some FAQ, but hopefully this session was useful for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It looks like we have all of the questions answered. So thank you, Takayuki and Naomi, for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer all of the questions. At the same time, I would like to remind listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.